Hello, friends. It's that time of the weekend. Chris McDonald here with you with the Chris McDonald podcast show. Before we get started here, I just want to remind you that I'd like for you to follow me and like me and subscribe. And you can do so at Christopher McDonald Podcast Show, and that's on YouTube. And that way, every week, you will be able to see these lovely little podcasts and all the ones that we've done in the past. We do thank our good friend Amy from last week who did one with us, and also Lee Berry. And Lee's has actually gotten up in almost to 400 people who have read it, and I've got a few likes in there as well. So those likes mean a lot to me. That means you're looking at the stuff, you're liking what I'm saying, and so please keep that up. We definitely want to keep this thing going as much as possible. It's Duke Carolina week. That's right. Carolina and Duke play on Saturday night, 6:30 on ESPN. And they're playing at Cameron, final game of the ACC season, regular season. Carolina goes in leading Duke by one game in the standings, and it's looking like this game's going to decide who'll wind up with the number one seed, because they'll have split, and so we'll of course, being waving the flag for the Tar Heels, we'll hope for the best that they do pull it out in Cameron. Cameron is a tough place to play, but I tell you, if I ever wanted or got to see want to see a Carolina Duke game, I would love to see the Carolina Duke game at Cameron. That's nothing against the Smith Center. That's a fantastic place. I've been there several times. Was there the first night that Tyler Hansborough took the floor. Met the late great Eric Montross there. Matter of fact, even called a basketball game back in 1986 there. And a lot of people may not know this. RCC at one point had a basketball team, and the president, Mr. Joe Grimsley, God rest his soul, he had worked for Governor Jim Hunt, and it worked it out to where we at RCC got to play the Carolina JV team in February of 1987. Now, this was the team that had Jeff Lebos, Steve Hale, and the gentleman who was just one whale of a player by the name of J.R. Reed. And so they were out doing warm-ups. J.R. was out he wasn't dressed yet for the game. They were going to be playing Marquette that day. And he came over. We got him over, and we did a little brief interview with him, me and my good friend Ernest Watts. And so we did the interview and talked to him, and then we went up and got to call the game play-by-play, and then we got to watch Carolina play and defeat Marquette. And one of the big thrills of my whole life is I got to go over into the broadcast booth with my good friend, Mr. Woody Durham. What a great gentleman he was. And I got to watch him call the game as we were, and watch him do it, see how he did and everything that he had taught me on how to do the play-by-play. So it was just a fantastic day all the way around. But there was a point that was in there somewhere. But anyway, it's watching games at the Smith Center, are great. I mean, I'd love to see a lot of the older, I'd love to see us play one game in Carmichael once a year. I'd like to see him play a game at Reynolds over at NC State. Of course, they still play at Cameron. It's just the history. Go, even though we don't play Maryland anymore, but go play them in a Big Ten challenge up at Cole Fieldhouse like in the old days. Of course, this within the last couple of weeks, we did lose that wonderful coach Lefty Drizel, who was always good for a good comment and whatnot. And he was just extraordinary in everything he did. Always brought success to all of the programs that he participated in. And just very sad that Glenn Bias situation did happen on his watch back in July of '86. But he was a great coach, and he definitely is missed as we're starting to lose several of the older coaches who really made the ACC, who really brought basketball out of its infancy and is now this multi-billion-dollar March Madness that it is, that'll be starting in about 2 weeks. Matter of fact, 2 weeks from today will be the first play-in game. So we also, 2 weeks from today, will be having our good friend Tom Moore back with us. We'll go through all the brackets, discuss who we think is going to be the eventual national champion. I have a feeling that he's going to be leaning toward Storrs, Connecticut, just like I'm going to be leaning toward Chapel Hill. But hopefully we'll better get him in with us and talk to him for a little while as well. Baseball season, it's getting cranked up. The Mets and Yankees played today in kind of a semi-subway series down in spring training. Braves have been playing pretty well. So baseball season gets cranked up the last week of March. And so of course we'll have Major League Baseball, and just got through with the combine, the NFL combine. So we'll be seeing some, we've got to see some of the future of the NFL. Of course, the draft this year is in Detroit. Caleb Williams from USC is currently being considered to be the first pick. We'll have to see what happens. That Chicago does have that, but Chicago, it just depends on what they're looking for. I personally think that Williams would probably do better in a Washington or possibly different other places that are really more multifaceted offenses. A lot of some fantastic players, a lot of fantastic quarterbacks have gone to Chicago and have not fared too well. As many of you know, Chicago back in the early days of the NFL, in the 60s, 70s, whatever, they were known for all of their defense and not really a big offensive team. And their best quarterback was Sid Luckman, and he was the last one to really become an all-pro, be the standalone quarterback that he was. So that's one of the that's one of the things with that. So that's going along. Golf, of course. This week they're playing the Arnold Palmer Championship down at Bay Hill. Then next week, of course, down in one of the cities I've been fortunate to live in, and on the golf course I've been fortunate to play. They're playing the Tournament Players Championship next week. Scotty Scheffler, number one in the world, is the number one, is playing in it, of course. He's the defending champion. So if he gets that putter working, watch out. I mean, last year, if he would have gotten that putter working, he'd won 6 more times. I mean, it would have been a really historical year if that would have happened for him. But next week they'll be playing in Ponte Vedra. Wonderful golf course. It's all the golf course you want. I'm sure that there's several of you who have played it. Alex said I've been fortunate to play it. Knocked it on the island green in one shot and left the birdie putt a foot short. So that was one of my claims to fame there. Didn't play exceptionally well, but it's made for the pros, and I certainly have never got to wear that moniker. So, but so that that's kind of like what's going on in the world of sports over the next couple of weeks. I do know that Formula One did get cranked back up this past weekend. Max Verstappen, just back to where he was, won by 22 seconds. Now that you think about, that's half a minute. I mean, as fast as those cars go, I mean, that's amazing. I believe I can't remember how fast they used to qualify the NASCAR at Rockingham, but it was not much more than 22 to 28 seconds of getting around that. And so that's almost 3/4 of a mile ahead of everyone. I mean, it's amazing. And especially those Formula One cars, those things are just rocket ships. I mean, it's amazing just how they do get around. But and there's a lot of rumor and innuendo going on right now in the land of Formula One, which it seems like since I've started following it 3 or 4 years ago, it just seems like that's always the case. But regardless of that, that's kind of what's going on. Of course, today is Super Tuesday. We are a political free zone around here, so we don't really get into the who's, whys, and wherefores with it. But it is Super Tuesday, and I do hope you did get out and vote. I certainly did this morning, and we're hoping to get some results here, and I'll probably be able to discuss those next week with you. Like I said, no rooting interest on either side of it, just being able to do what the Constitution allows us to do, and it does give us the right to vote, right to choose our leaders, and free and fair elections. That's what it says in the Constitution, and we should support that. But this week I wanted to talk to you primarily about about forgiveness. That's right. About forgiveness. Now, there's been many people in this world, that have, that have dealt with forgiveness, that have had, that give forgiveness, that want us to be able to forgive. Jesus, of course, being the main one. And, of course, Nelson Mandela, he's another one. Martin Luther King, that's another one. But one of the most incredible individuals that's ever that's been alive here on earth, and he was just incredible, is Bishop Desmond Tutu, who was the Archbishop down in South Africa during the apartheid time, and he did win a Nobel Peace Prize, and it's really hard to it has to be incredible to forgive someone for things that they've done, and really that's not something minor, that's something major. I mean, it's the whole time with when apartheid was going on, it was just incredibly, I cannot imagine how bad it was in living down there, and it's just it was terrible. And so he wrote a book, and it is called The Book of Forgiving. If you can see, I'll bring it back where I can get up here to the camera. See, oh, you can. There you go. The Book of Forgiving. It's by Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mpho Tutu. And he is, like I said, he is an Episcopal priest, Anglican priest, as a matter of fact. And he wrote this book, and it's just an incredible book. And I want to read a couple of things to you real quick out of it, because that's what we always want to do. We always want to forgive. And it's going to speak to us a little bit about how we forgive, how forgiveness is so important to life as we know it. He starts off, put the glasses on so we can see here. He calls it the prayer before the prayer. And it says this: I want to be willing to forgive, but I dare not ask for the will to forgive, in case you give it to me. And I'm not yet ready. I'm not yet ready for my heart to soften. I am not yet ready to be vulnerable again. Not yet ready to see that there is humanity in my tormentor's eyes, or that the one who hurt me may also have cried. I am not yet ready for the journey. I am not interested in the path. I am at the prayer before the prayer of forgiveness. Grant me the will to want to forgive. Grant it to me, not yet, but soon. Can I even form the words, forgive me? Dare I even look? Do I dare to see the hurt I have caused? I can glimpse all the shattered pieces of that fragile thing, that soul trying to rise on the broken wings of hope, but only out of the corner of my eye, and I'm afraid of it. And if I am afraid to see, how can I not be afraid to say, forgive me? Is there a place where we can meet, you and me? The place in the middle, the no man's land, where we straddle the lines, where you are right, and I too am right too, and both of us are wrong and wronged. Can we meet there and look for the place where the path begins, the path that ends when we forgive? Now, forgiveness that's always a difficult question. That's always a difficult time. Jesus said, if you forgive others their transgressions, your heavenly Father will forgive you. And then Peter asked Jesus how often it is necessary to forgive. And Jesus replied, 77 times. Okay, 77 times. A number not to be taken symbolically, not literally, but for the never-ending way that we ought to forgive. And a lot of times it says 70 times 7. That's 490 times. There's been many times, Jesus did say, you need to worry about the rod or the stick or whatever in your eye before you start worrying about what's in the other person's eye. And that's one of the issues that people come across. And we want to forgive. We want to learn how to forgive. We want to be able to forgive. And it's hard to. It's hard to do that. Back last year about this time, I wrote a column called The Fine Art of Finding Forgiveness. And it was, as a matter of fact, it's a something along this rate. And I'll read this to you real fast. And the first is a quote. I always use epigraphs in anything that I write, and it's this one in particular is runs right along with Mr. Mandela here. As I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness behind and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. That was Nelson Mandela. And of course, Malala Yousafzai, who everyone has heard of, she was the young girl who was shot by the Taliban for going to school. And she said, my father asked, have you forgiven them? And I told him that I have not ever felt angry toward them. Not even small as an atom or a nucleus or a proton or a quark. Never angry. And she, Malala is an incredible person. And so, just the being able to do that. How, even if you had somebody that was shooting you because you wanted to go to school, think about that. That's a lot to carry. Well, I'm going to read just a little bit of this here. What's your point? Well, friends, my answer is this. These people forgave other humans for the atrocities that had been imposed upon them. Let me say that again. They forgave other humans for imprisoning them and for attempting to assassinate them. So what kind of level of faith and forgiveness does a person have to possess to grant forgiveness to those who have done wrong to them? Forgiveness lets people out of prison. Hate, disenchantment, grudge, wrath, and any other adjective you may attribute to Mr. Roget's finest publication will eat a person alive. Forgiveness not only sets the person you are forgiving free from those bonds, it allows you to be freed from your own prison. According to an article on PragerU, Dr. Stephen Marmer of the UCLA Medical School, there's 3 types of forgiveness: exoneration, forbearance, and release. Exoneration is a wiping of the slate entirely clean and restoring a relationship to the full state of innocence. Forbearance applies when the offender makes a partial apology or mingles their expression of sorrow with blame that you somehow cause them to behave badly. Think gaslighting and narcissistic behavior. Release is removing your bad feelings and your preoccupation with the negative things that have happened to you. I truly believe release is the most important concept that Dr. Marmer puts forth. According to the article, release does something that is critically important. It allows you to let the burden go. The silent tax that is weighing you down and eating away at your chance for happiness. If you do not release the pain and anger and move past dwelling on old hurts and betrayals, you'll be allowing the ones who hurt you to live rent-free in your mind, reliving forever the persecution that the original incident started. Now, think back to my 2 epigraphs, especially the Mandela quote. If I didn't leave my bitterness behind, I'd still be in prison. There are far too many divisions throughout this country today. There's far too much hurt. There's far too much pain. If we are to recover, let me read that again. If we are to recover, if we are to reconnect, if we are to survive, we must learn forgiveness. Our happiness is in the balance. Free your mind, leave the prison, and learn to love and forgive. Now, that's what we must do. We must learn to love and forgive. Now, people think, oh gosh, if I go and forgive somebody, that's like giving in. That's not being strong. That's not, I can't go and admit that I've, made this error. I've that I've wronged them or anything. That's just, that doesn't, hold up. Ha! I say. According to Reverend Mandela, excuse me, according to Reverend Tutu, we all aspire to be forgiving people. We admire and esteem those who find it in their hearts to forgive, even when they are betrayed, cheated, stolen from, lied to, or worse. The parents who forgive the person who murdered their child inspire us in something like, oh, the woman who can forgive her rapist seems possessed of a special kind of courage. A man who forgives the people who tortured him brutally, we think his deed heroic. Do we see these people and these acts and think those who forgave are weak? No, of course not. We don't. Forgiveness is not weak. It is not passive. It is not for the faint of heart. Forgiving does not mean being spineless, nor does it mean one doesn't get angry. I get angry mostly when I see others being harmed or when I see the rights of others being trampled underfoot. I've known people who have been able to be compassionate and forgiving, even under the most strenuous circumstances, while undergoing the most horrific treatment. Bishop Malusi Mampawa is someone like that, and arrested as an anti-apartheid activist. He endured excruciating physical torture at the hands of the South African police. His experience renewed his commitment to anti-apartheid work. He did not work out of the thirst for revenge. He told me that in the midst of his torture, he had an astonishing insight. These are God's children, and they are losing their humanity. We have to help them recover it. It is a remarkable feat to be able to see past the inhumanity of the behavior and recognize the humanity of the person committing the atrocious acts. This is not weakness. This is heroic strength, the noblest strength of the human spirit. At the age of 12, Bassem Aramin watched as another boy his age was shot and killed by an Israeli soldier. In that moment, he felt a deep need for revenge and joined a group of freedom fighters in Hebron. Some called him a terrorist, but he felt he was fighting for his safety, his home, and his right to be free. At 17, he was caught planning an attack on Israeli troops and sentenced to 7 years in prison. In prison, he only learned to hate more as he was stripped naked and beaten by his prison guards. They were beating us without hatred because for them, this was just a training exercise, and they saw us as objects. While in prison, Bassem engaged in dialogue with his Israeli guard. Each thought the other was a terrorist and equally denied being the settler in the land they shared. Through their conversation, they realized how much they had in common with the other. For Bassem, it was the first time he recalls feeling empathy in his life. Seeing the transformation that took place between him and his captor as they recognized their shared humanity, Bassem realized that violence could never bring peace. This realization changed his life. In 2005, Bassem Aramin co-founded a group called Combatants for Peace. He had not picked up a weapon since, and for Bassem, this was not a sign of weakness, but of true strength. In 2007, Bassem's 10-year-old daughter, Abir, was shot by an Israeli soldier as she stood outside her school. Bassem said, Abir's mother could have led me down the easy path of hatred and vengeance, but for me, there was no return from dialogue and nonviolence. After all, it was one Israeli soldier who shot my daughter, but 100 former Israeli soldiers who built a garden in her name at the school where she was murdered. I say again, forgiveness is not weakness, and no, it is not. Being willing to look people in the eye when you talk to them. Being willing to say, I was wrong. Now, I want to give you kind of something to think about in our last 5 minutes and 19 seconds. There is a difference between saying, I'm sorry, and I apologize. If you say I'm sorry once, okay, that's fine. That's that's all right. All right, good, good. But if you say I'm sorry over and over and over and over again, that's almost a manipulation. I know I used to tell that to my school kids, I'm sorry, I did this. No, 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 you're not. Just, I understand. You're just trying to get out of trouble. I got it. Okay. But if you're truly sorry, you wouldn't do it again. I apologize is a stronger way to ask for forgiveness. I apologize. I take what I've done. I'm taking responsibility for it. And I would like to ask your forgiveness. That's where the apology becomes stronger than the I'm sorry or the I am sorry. It makes us come to empathy. Come to the person. I apologize for wronging you in whatever way that it was. I apologize for fill in the blank. Making an apology takes thought. Making an apology takes guts. It's a strong statement. You think about it. I mean, I do know a little bit about word origins, but I mean, in breaking up apology, I mean, you are looking at, I'm thinking, POL, police policy, being able to use that as, as saying, okay, this is my word. You have my word that I truly feel bad about what I did. And I truly am sorry for what I did. Thus I apologize for it. To me, sorry is almost a condition, I guess is the best way to put it. I am sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. It's a condition. It's a condition of how someone felt. Being able to apologize to someone is a certain stronger way to say, I'm asking your forgiveness, is to ask for the forgiveness of the person who was wrong. I know that there have been, people that I've wronged in the past unintentionally. And I apologize to them, more than you can imagine. And there are times that we do things, but being willing to say, I apologize. I admit what I did. I take responsibility for it. I'm not sloughing it off on anyone else. That's where the importance of the apology, of owning up to it, comes in. One of the things that I noticed, and we've got a couple of minutes left, is that a lot of folks these days don't look straight in the eye. They'll come into the shop at the Legacy and they'll come to pay me and they won't look me in the eye at all. They just hand me their money and whatever. They're not fiddling on their phone or anything. It's just like, okay, here you go. Here's whatever it is. Well, here's the card. And it seems like that those folks are just terribly unhappy. And I don't think terribly shy at all. But the people who look me in the eye, they always have something about the countenance of them, the countenance from the benediction, may the countenance of the Lord shine upon you, the face of the Lord, they're much more shiny and happy, and not to steal an REM song, but they seem more happy, they're not afraid to look somebody in the eye. Never be afraid to look anybody in the eye. That's the, one of the lessons I'd like for you to remember today. But as we close today, being willing to forgive, being willing to apologize, that is strength. That gives us hope, empathy, love. And it's all about love. It's all about how we have to love one another, how the Lord wants us to love, how Jesus wants us to love one another. Remember, I apologize. I forgive you. Remember those two things, and everything will be all right. I thank you folks for watching tonight. I hope you have a wonderful remainder of the week, and we will look forward to being with you next week. Matter of fact, next week I do have a couple of guests. One is going to be Jenny Moree. We've talked with Jenny before, did a couple of articles on her. Jenny Moree used to run the Jenny Moree Salon over in Southern Pines. She's the rock and roll hairstylist, and she's going to join us. And then later on the week, we're going to get with the Darling family, and we're going to discuss all of the work they've done in the community here in revamping all these new homes, working on the Fox home. Just drove by it today. It is amazing the work that's been done so far. But they're going to join us as well in another podcast for next week. So next week will be a double podcast week. So please do join us. Again, please like us, follow us, friend us, whatever that you have to do. And remember, it is at Christopher McDonald Show Podcast, and that is on YouTube. Again, thank you very much, and you folks have a great evening. We'll see you next week.